The humidity of August in Manhattan usually clings to you like a cheap suit, but 40 stories above Fifth Avenue, the air was chilled to a crisp, expensive perfection. I stepped out of the private elevator directly into a penthouse that didn't just overlook the city, it seemed to own it. The floor-to-ceiling glass offered a panoramic view of Central Park, which looked less like a public space and more like a private emerald set into the gray pavement of the world. I adjusted the cuff of my jacket, a midnight blue wool silk blend that felt like a second skin, and tried to ignore the fact that my rent for the year wouldn't cover the marble slab under my feet. The room was a sea of Loro Piana cashmere and the soft chime of Baccarat crystal. People didn't speak here. They murmured in the hushed tones of those who have never had to shout to be heard. I felt like an interloper, a middle-class ghost haunting a palace of capital, until I saw her. Annie was framed against the skyline, her silhouette cutting through the soft amber glow of the recessed lighting. She was draped in a vintage slip dress that shimmered like spilled oil, her neck adorned with a strand of South Sea pearls that caught the light every time she tilted her head. She spotted me, excused herself from a man who looked like he owned a small European nation, and glided toward me. "You look like you're deciding whether to buy the building or burn it down, Jeffrey," she whispered, her voice a low, melodic vibration that cut through the ambient jazz. I leaned in, catching the faint, intoxicating scent of sandalwood and something distinctly floral. "I'm leaning toward the latter," I countered, offering a slow smile. "It's much more dramatic." She laughed, a silver sound that made several heads turn. She reached out, her fingers grazing the sleeve of my jacket with a practiced feline grace. "Most men here try too hard to blend in. You, however, look like you're observing an alien species. Isn't that what this is?" I asked, gesturing toward a group of traders huddled near a Steinway, their Patek Philippe dials flashing under the chandeliers. "A collection of beautiful, high-stakes rarities." "And what does that make me?" she asked, stepping closer, closing the distance until I could see the flecks of gold in her eyes. The air between us suddenly felt pressurized, heavy with the kind of intent that doesn't need words. "You're the siren who lured me to the rocks," I replied, my voice dropping an octave. "And I suspect the water is very deep." She didn't look away. Instead, she took the champagne flute from my hand and set it on a nearby console of Macassar ebony without breaking eye contact. "The water is freezing, Jeffrey, but the view from the bottom is spectacular." She moved her hand from my arm to my lapel, smoothing the fabric with a lingering touch that felt like a promise. "Come," she demanded softly, her eyes dancing with a dangerous spark. "The balcony is private, and the stars look much better when you aren't sharing them with the board of directors." As I followed her toward the glass doors, the heavy scent of wealth faded, replaced by the cool electric charge of the New York night, and the realization that while I didn't belong in this world, for tonight, the most beautiful thing in it belonged to me. The heavy glass door slid shut behind us with a pneumatic hit, peeling away the clinking crystal and the hum of high finance gossip. Out here, the wind whipped through the canyons of Manhattan, carrying the scent of rain and distant asphalt. But Annie didn't shiver. She leaned back against the glass railing, the lights of the Empire State Building glowing behind her like a crown. "The air is different up here, isn't it?" she mused, her eyes tracing the grid of the city below. "It's thinner. It makes people lose their sense of gravity." "It's the height, not the air," I replied, stepping into the space she had left open for me. I placed my hands on the cold metal rail, centimeters from hers. "You're so far above the streets that you start to believe the rules of the ground don't apply to you." She turned her head, her pearls clicking softly. "And do they apply to you, I mean?" "I'm a creature of the ground, Annie. I still check the price of a vintage before I order it. I still remember what it's like to sweat in a subway station," I admitted, my voice stripped of the evening's pretension. She let out a soft, hummed note of contemplation. "That's why I asked you here. Everyone inside is a carbon copy of the man standing next to him. They wear the same tailored armor and tell the same jokes about their portfolios. But you—" She paused. Her gaze traveled from my eyes down to my mouth and back. "You look at this view like you're trying to memorize it before someone takes it away." "Because someone usually does," I countered. "Wealth like this is a lease, not a right." Annie stepped closer then, invading my personal space with the confidence of a woman who had never been told no. Silk of her dress brushed against my trousers, a whisper of friction that felt like a lightning strike. You're so cynical, Jeffrey. It's almost a challenge. Tell me, if this entire building disappeared tomorrow, what would you miss most? The marble, Vacheron Constantine on the host's wrist. You'd miss the silence, I said, my voice dropping to a low murmur as I looked directly into her eyes. The way everything else disappears when you're high enough, and I'd miss the way you're looking at me right now, like I'm the only thing in this city that isn't for sale. She smiled, a slow, predatory curve of the lips. Oh, everything is for sale, Jeffrey. The question is simply whether you have the currency to afford it. And what's your currency, Annie? Influence, legacy. She reached out, her fingers tracing the line of my jaw, her skin warm against the chill of the night air. Honesty, she whispered. It's the rarest luxury in New York, more expensive than a penthouse on Fifth. People spend millions to hide who they are. You're remarkably transparent. Is that a compliment or a warning? I asked, my heart hammering a rhythm that had nothing to do with the altitude. It's an invitation, she breathed. She leaned in, her breath a warm ghost against my ear. The party inside will go on for hours. We'll talk about mergers and acquisitions until the sun hits the Chrysler building. I find myself suddenly very bored with business. She pulled back just enough to look at me, her hands sliding behind my neck, her thumb grazing the base of my skull. I have a car waiting downstairs. Dropped bluntly with a driver who knows when to look at the rearview mirror and when to forget he has one. We could stay here and watch the sharks feed, or we could go somewhere where the air is a little less thin. The city hummed beneath us, a million lives intersecting in the dark. But in that moment, the skyline felt like a mere backdrop for the woman standing in front of me. I've never been much for watching sharks, I said. My hand found the small of her back. Lead the way. She didn't say another word. She simply took my hand, her grip firm and demanding, and led me back toward the glass doors, leaving the golden glow of the 1% for the shadows of the city that belonged to us.